future, every object on Earth will be generating data, including our homes, our cars, even our bodies. Almost everything we do today leaves a trail of digital exhaust, a perpetual stream of text, location data, and other information that will live on, well after each of us is long gone. We are now being exposed to as much information in a single day as our 15th century ancestors were exposed to in their entire lifetime. But we need to be very careful, because in this vast ocean of data, there's a frighteningly complete picture of us. Where we live, where we go, what we buy, what we say. It's all being recorded and stored forever. This is the story of an extraordinary revolution that's sweeping almost invisibly through our lives, and about how our planet is beginning to develop a nervous system, with each of us acting as human sensors. This is the human face of big data.
Everybody who's on Facebook is involved in a transaction in which they're donating their data to Facebook, who then sells their data, and in return they get this service which allows them to post pictures and connect to their friends and so on and so on and so on and so on. That's the transaction, but nobody knows that's the transaction. Most people, I think, don't understand that. They just literally think they're getting Facebook for free, and it's not a free thing. We're paying for it by allowing them access to our data.
There are a lot of people on Facebook who don't know, for example, how much information is really out there about themselves, and probably and apparently don't care as long as they can put up pictures of their cats. I think most people, when they think about privacy, they don't seem to connect their willingness to share their personal information with the world, either through social media or through shopping online or anything else. They don't seem to equate that with surveillance.
Every time I receive a text message, every time I make a phone call, my location is being recorded. That data about me is being pushed off to a server that is owned by my mobile operator. If I call that mobile phone operator and say, hey, I'd like to have my data, please. At a minimum, share it with me. I'd like to see my locations over time. They won't give it to me.
The increased ability of these devices that we have to become recording and sensing objects, so data collection devices essentially in public space, that changes a lot of things.
Even if the phone company took away all of your personal identifying information, it would know within about 30 centimeters where you woke up every morning, and where you went to work every day, and the path that you took, and who you were walking with. And so even if they didn't know who you are, they know who you are. What I'm really worried about is the cost to democracy. Now, today, it's nearly impossible to be truly anonymous. And so the ability to everything to be connected to you, and for everything you do in the real world to be connected to everything you're doing in cyberspace, and then the ability for whoever it is to take that, put it together, and turn it into a story. My fear really is that once there's so much data out there, and once governments and companies start to be able to use that data to profile people, to filter them out, everybody is going to start to worry about their activities.
We're at a very, very important point where I think our society has come to realize this fact and just begun in earnest to debate the implications of it.
You have, I think, an attitude in the NSA that they have a right to every bit of information they can collect. We have constructed a world where the government is collecting secretly all of the data it can on each individual citizen, whether that individual citizen has done anything or not. They have been collecting massive amounts of data through cell phone providers, internet providers, that is then sifted through secretly by people over whom no democratic institution has effective control. There's a feeling that if you're not communing with terrorists, what do you care if the government gathers your information? This is probably the most pernicious anti-Bill of Rights line of thought that there is, because these are rights we hold in common. Every violation of somebody else's rights is a violation of yours.
What's going to happen, I think, is that we now have so much information out there about ourselves and the ability for people to abuse it. People are going to get hurt, people are going to lose their jobs, people are going to get divorced, people are going to get killed, and it's going to become really painful, and everyone's going to realize we have to do something about this, and then we're going to start to change. Now the question is, how bad is it?
You can't have a secret operation validated by a secret court based on secret evidence in a democratic republic. So the system closes and no information gets out except it gets leaked or it gets dumped on the world by outside actors, whether that's WikiLeaks or whether that's Bradley Manning or whether that's Edward Snowden. That's the way that people find out what their government is up to. We're living in a future where we've lost our right to privacy. We've given it away for convenience sake in our economic and social lives, and we've lost it for fear's sake vis-a-vis our government.
I don't think there's any question that we're at a moment in human history that we will look back on in 50 or 100 years and say, right around 2000 or so, it all changed.
And I do think we will date before the explosion of data and after.
I don't think it's an issue of climate change or health or jobs. I think it's all issues. Everything has information at its core. Everything. Okay? So if information matters, then reorganizing the entire information network of the planet is like wiring up the brain of a 2-year-old child. Suddenly that child can talk and think and act and behave, right? The world is wiring up a cerebral cortex, if you will, of billions of connected elements that are going to exchange billions of ideas, billions of points of knowledge, and billions of ways of working together.
Together, they become this enormous wave of change. And that wave of change is going to take us in directions that we can't begin to imagine.
The ability to turn that data into actionable insight is what computers are very good at. The ability to take action is what we're really good at. And I think it's really important to separate those two, because people conflate them and get scared and think the computers are taking over. The computers are this extraordinary tool that we have at our disposal to accelerate our ability to solve the problems that, frankly, we've gotten ourselves into.
I am fundamentally optimistic, but I'm not blindly, foolishly optimistic. You got to remember, the financial crisis was brought to us by big data people as well, because they weren't actually thinking very hard about how do they create value for the world. They were just thinking about how do they create value for themselves. You know, we have a fair amount of literature, a fair amount of understanding that if you take more out of the ecosystem than you put back in, the whole thing breaks down. That's why I think we have to actually earn our future. We can't just sort of pat ourselves on the back and think it's just going to fall into our laps. We have to care about what kind of future we're making, and we have to invest in that future, and we have to make the right choices.
It is, to me, paramount that our culture understands that we must take this data thing as ours, that we are the platform for it. Humans, individuals are the platform for it. That it is not something done to us, but rather it is ours to do with something as we wish.